Life is not waiting for you to feel ready. Life is not pausing so you can figure everything out. Every single day, you are gifted with 24 hours. The same 24 hours given to the most successful, the most broken, the most powerful, and the most ordinary people. The difference is never time. The difference is always how you use it. We often say, "I don't have time." But the truth is, we have time for what we choose to value. We scroll endlessly, we delay dreams, we wait for the perfect moment that never arrives. And slowly, days turn into months, months turn into years, and suddenly we look back and wonder where life went. Time doesn't disappear, it is spent, sometimes wisely, sometimes carelessly. Time is your most honest reality check. It never bends for excuses, it never pauses for comfort, and it never slows down when you feel unprepared. It keeps moving in the same rhythm for everyone, but it exposes everything about how you choose to live within it. Every hour you spend tells a silent truth about your priorities, your fears, and your discipline. You may say you are waiting for the right moment, but time is already recording that waiting as your decision. You may say you are busy, but time is already showing where your energy actually goes. There is no hiding from it, because time is not emotional. It is not biased. It does not sympathize with intentions. It only reflects actions, and that reflection becomes your life. People often misunderstand time as something they lack, but in reality, it is something they constantly spend without noticing. You wake up and immediately begin exchanging hours for habits, thoughts, distractions, responsibilities, and sometimes even for things that do not add value to your growth. The tragedy is not that time is short, but that awareness is even shorter. You scroll without thinking. You delay without questioning. You repeat routines without evaluating whether they are building anything meaningful inside you. And slowly, the days start blending into each other until you can no longer tell the difference between progress and repetition. That is how life quietly slips away, not in dramatic moments, but in unnoticed seconds. Time reveals your direction even when you are confused about it. If you observe your life honestly, you will see where your hours naturally flow. They flow toward what you care about most, even if you do not admit it. If your time is invested in distractions, then distraction becomes your comfort. If your time is invested in learning, then growth becomes your identity. If your time is invested in avoidance, then fear becomes your companion. Time does not judge you, but it exposes you. And sometimes that exposure feels uncomfortable because it shows a version of you that words cannot hide. There is also a strange relationship between time and regret. Regret does not come from what you failed at, but from what you never tried while you had the chance. It comes when you look back and realize you were alive during moments that could have shaped your future, but you treated them as if they were infinite. Time makes everything feel abundant in the beginning, but it becomes precious only in hindsight. That is why awareness is powerful. When you begin to see time as something alive, something breathing through every moment, you start questioning your habits differently. You start asking whether this hour is building you or breaking you quietly. Even your emotions are tied to time. The way you feel about yourself is often connected to how you spend your days. Wasted time creates guilt, and guilt slowly turns into self-doubt. Productive time creates confidence, and confidence builds inner strength. This is not about being constantly busy, but about being consciously present. There is a difference between filling time and fulfilling it. One drains you without direction, the other shapes you even in silence. When you begin to understand this difference, Your entire perception of life begins to shift, not suddenly, but gradually. Like light entering a room that was always open but never noticed, and yet most people still wait. They wait for motivation, they wait for clarity, they wait for conditions to become perfect. But time does not wait with them. It continues its quiet movement forward, leaving behind traces of missed chances and unspoken ideas. The truth is that clarity often comes after action, not before it. You do not find direction by standing still. You find it by moving, even imperfectly, even uncertainly. Because movement teaches what hesitation never can. It shows you your strengths, your limits, and your ability to adapt to what life demands in real situations. When you start respecting time, even in small ways, your mindset begins to shift. You stop treating hours as empty space and start treating them as opportunities. You begin to realize that every small decision compounds into something larger than you can see in the present moment. A single focused hour can shift your entire direction over weeks, months, and years. But a single wasted hour, repeated daily, can also build a life you never intended to live, slowly and silently shaping outcomes that feel sudden only when they finally arrive. Discipline is greater than motivation, because motivation is emotional and discipline is structural. Motivation depends on how you feel in a moment, and feelings are unpredictable. They rise and fall like waves without warning. One day you feel powerful, inspired, ready to change everything. And the next day you feel empty, distracted, or tired without any clear reason. If your life depends only on motivation, then your progress will always depend on your mood, and a life controlled by mood can never become stable. Discipline, on the other hand, does not ask how you feel. It asks what you promised yourself. It asks what you decided when your mind was clear, not when your emotions were loud. Most people misunderstand discipline as pressure, but discipline is actually freedom in disguise. It is the ability to act, even when your emotions are resisting you. It is the strength to show up when everything inside you says, "Not today." And in those moments, when you choose action over avoidance, you are not losing comfort, you are building identity. Because identity is not created in big moments, it is created in repeated small decisions that no one sees. Every time you choose discipline over delay, you are quietly shaping the kind of person you are becoming. Motivation is like fire. It burns bright, but fades quickly. Discipline is like structure. It stays even when the fire is gone. You cannot rely on fire to build a house. You need structure, consistency, and patience. That is how real transformation happens, not in bursts of energy, but in steady commitment. People often wait for inspiration before they start, but inspiration is not something that comes first. It is something that comes after you begin. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. There is also a hidden truth about discipline that most people avoid. It is uncomfortable at the beginning. It requires you to say no to habits that feel easy but give no value. It requires you to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. It requires you to face resistance within yourself. And that resistance will always try to convince you that later is fine, tomorrow is better, or you can start again next week. But every delay strengthens the habit of delay itself. And slowly, procrastination becomes a lifestyle rather than a momentary choice. Discipline is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent, even when you are imperfect. It is about continuing even when progress feels slow or invisible, because most meaningful growth is invisible in the beginning. A seed does not show results the day it is planted, but that does not mean it is not growing beneath the surface. In the same way, your daily discipline may feel small, but it is building something powerful within you that you cannot see immediately. The strongest people are not those who never struggle with motivation, but those who do not depend on it. They understand that emotions are temporary, but results are built over time. They do not negotiate with their goals every day. They decide once, and then they follow through repeatedly, even when it feels repetitive, even when it feels boring, even when no one is watching. That repetition is what separates intention from achievement. When you live with discipline, you stop reacting to life and start directing it. You stop waiting for the right moment and start creating it. You begin to realize that time does not reward intention, it rewards execution. You can have all the plans in the world, but without consistent action, they remain only thoughts. Discipline transforms thoughts into reality, step by step, moment by moment, choice by choice. And slowly, something changes inside you. You no longer feel controlled by your emotions. You start trusting yourself more. You begin to respect your own word. And that self-respect becomes stronger than any temporary motivation you once depended on. You realize that the life you want is not built on how inspired you feel, but on how committed you remain when inspiration is absent. You don't change your life in one giant leap. You change it in the quiet repetition of small actions that seem almost invisible in the beginning. Most people underestimate the power of small steps because they are looking for big results, big transformations, and big breakthroughs. But life rarely works in that dramatic way. Real change is slow, almost silent, and often so gradual that you do not notice it happening while you are living it. A single decision may not feel powerful in the moment, but when repeated over days, weeks, and months, it begins to shape your identity in ways you never imagined. Every habit you build is a direction you are choosing for your future. It may look small, like waking up a little earlier, spending an hour learning something new, or choosing focus over distraction, but each of these actions is a seed. And seeds do not show their impact immediately. They work underground in silence, building roots before they ever show signs of growth. People often give up at the stage where nothing seems to be happening, not realizing that the most important changes are happening beneath the surface where no one is watching. That is where your future is being constructed. Small actions matter because they are sustainable. You cannot rely on extreme changes because they are difficult to maintain. You can decide to change your life overnight, but maintaining that change requires something deeper than emotion. It requires consistency. And consistency is always built on simple, repeatable actions. Even one focused hour a day can become more powerful than occasional bursts of effort that come and go without structure. The difference is not intensity, it is continuity. What you do repeatedly becomes your identity. If you repeatedly choose distraction, you slowly become someone who struggles with focus. If you repeatedly choose learning, you become someone who grows without forcing it. If you repeatedly choose delay, you become someone who postpones life itself. And the most powerful part of this process is that it does not feel dramatic while it is happening. It feels normal, almost harmless. But over time, it becomes the foundation of who you are. People often wait for the perfect moment to start something meaningful. But perfection is just another form of delay. Life does not require perfect conditions, it requires participation. Even imperfect action creates momentum, and momentum is what breaks the cycle of hesitation. The moment you begin, even in a small way, you shift from thinking to doing. And that shift is more important than the size of the action itself. Because thinking keeps you in imagination, but action brings you into reality. There is a quiet strength in small progress. It does not attract attention. It does not create noise, but it builds resilience. When you improve just a little each day, you are creating a version of yourself that is stronger than the version you were yesterday. And that improvement compounds. It grows silently, like time itself, until one day you look back and realize you are no longer the same person who started. But at no point did it feel sudden. It felt like effort, repetition, and choice. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they underestimate patience. They want immediate results from actions that require time to mature. But growth is not instant. It follows its own rhythm, and that rhythm cannot be rushed. The effort you put in today may not show results tomorrow, but it is never wasted. It is stored, building layers of strength, skill, and understanding that will surface later when the timing is right. When you begin to respect small actions, your entire approach to life changes. You stop chasing quick outcomes and start building long-term stability. You stop looking for shortcuts and start valuing process. You begin to understand that greatness is not a single moment of achievement, but a collection of consistent efforts that gradually shape something larger than yourself. And in that understanding, your focus shifts from speed to depth, from urgency to intention, from reaction to creation. Your time is your life in motion. Every second you spend is not just passing, it is transforming into something that will never return in the same form again. Time is not separate from you, it is literally the space in which your life is happening. When you breathe, when you think, when you act, you are spending fragments of your existence, and those fragments quietly build the story of who you are becoming. Most people treat time like it is endless, like it can be borrowed, delayed, or recovered later. But time is the only resource that disappears the moment it is used. It does not wait, it does not pause, it does not negotiate with your intentions. Every decision you make with your time is actually a decision about your life. When you choose distraction, you are choosing a distracted life. When you choose learning, you are choosing a growing life. When you choose delay, you are choosing a postponed life. And these choices do not feel powerful in the moment, but they accumulate silently. You may not notice the impact today or tomorrow, but weeks and months later, the results become visible in your habits, your mindset, and your direction. Time is constantly shaping you, whether you are aware of it or not. And that is what makes it so powerful and so dangerous at the same time. People often believe they are managing time, but in reality, they are managing themselves within time. You cannot control time, but you can control what you do inside it. And that distinction is where most people lose clarity. They try to save time, but they waste attention. They try to plan time, but they fail to discipline action. Time itself is neutral, but how you use it determines whether it becomes your strength or your regret. It reflects your priorities more honestly than your words ever can. There is a quiet urgency hidden inside every ordinary day. A single hour wasted may not feel significant, but life is not measured in single moments alone, it is measured in accumulation. 1 hour becomes a habit becomes a pattern, and patterns become a life. That is how time quietly builds your reality. You do not wake up one day and suddenly become lost or successful. You arrive there through repeated use of your hours, through thousands of small decisions that seemed harmless in isolation, but powerful in combination. When you begin to see time as life in motion, Your awareness starts to shift. You stop treating days as empty space and start treating them as opportunities that will never return. Even rest becomes meaningful when it is intentional, not accidental. Even silence becomes powerful when it is chosen, not wasted. You start to notice where your energy goes without thinking, and that awareness alone begins to change your behavior. Because once you truly see how time moves through your life, you can no longer ignore it without feeling its weight. There is also a deeper emotional layer to time. It carries your memories, your growth, your pain, and your transformation. The version of you that exists today is built from every past moment you lived through. Nothing is separate. Every mistake, every effort, every delay, every success has contributed to shaping your current self. And what you do with your present time will shape the version of you that exists in the future. That connection between past, present, and future is always active, even when you are not thinking about it. Most people underestimate how quickly time changes things. They think there is always more space to start later, to try later, to become better later. But later is only an illusion created by comfort. The present moment is the only place where change is actually possible. And every moment that passes without intention becomes part of a life you did not consciously choose. That is why awareness is not just important. It is essential, because without awareness, time still moves, but you do not move with purpose inside it.